Racist cop frames black woman, not knowing she's his new police captain. A heavy drizzle swept across Philadelphia's dimly lit streets as Officer Brian Doyle paced in front of his patrol car, scanning for suspicious activity. His colleagues whispered that Doyle's stares ran colder whenever they landed on black residents, though no official complaint had stuck, yet. Tonight, with rain pattering on his windshield, a lone figure caught his eye, a poised black woman in a modest sedan, parked near an old brownstone. Determined to question her presence, Doyle approached with hostility, ready to fabricate whatever it took to prove she didn't belong. Little did he realize this woman was Jacqueline Reese, newly appointed police captain, and he was about to sign his own downfall. Late winter winds whipped through Philadelphia, casting shimmering reflections of streetlights on puddles. The shift was near midnight, the city mostly subdued after rush hour. Officer Brian Doyle, a 5-year veteran of the Philadelphia Police Department, cruised the side streets off Market Street, eager for some real action. He believed certain neighborhoods demanded heavier policing, especially if he saw a suspicious individual who didn't fit in. In truth, colleagues whispered that Doyle walked a fine line, his personal biases occasionally coloring his stops. But no official reprimand stuck, leaving him confident. Tonight, as he took a left turn down a quiet block of row houses, a lone sedan parked at the curb caught his eye. Inside, a black woman scrolled through her phone, waiting calmly. Doyle felt that jolt of suspicion. She looks too comfortable, too out of place. He decided to investigate, ignoring the simplest explanation that she might just be lost or meeting someone. A surge of adrenaline fueled him. Flicking on his spotlight, he pulled behind the sedan, radioing a possible suspicious vehicle. The woman inside, sensing bright beams, glanced up. From that moment on, a clash of illusions and truths was set into motion, one that would unmask Doyle's darkest prejudice and reveal the hidden authority of the woman he was about to frame. Captain Jacqueline Reese was about to call her sister when the glaring spotlight from a police cruiser pinned her sedan. She, newly arrived in Philadelphia from a successful stint in Pittsburgh, was set to assume her new post as a police captain in District 14 come Monday. Tonight, she was finalizing an apartment rental, waiting on her leasing agent's text to confirm entry codes. Her unmarked sedan bore no special insignia, just standard plates. Seeing the approaching officer in the rear mirror, she sighed, recalling stories of how sometimes cops singled out black drivers for petty or made-up reasons. She rummaged for her ID, though she typically kept her captain's ID discreet unless needed. Perhaps a straightforward chat. Show ID if he demands. It'll be fine, she told herself. Doyle approached, face shadowed by the bright beams. Tap on the window. She obliged, lowering it. "Evening, officer," she said, polite but firm. He didn't greet her. He demanded license and registration, scanning the back seat as if anticipating drugs or guns. She politely inquired if there was a reason for the stop. Doyle's glare deepened. Suspicious activity. This area is prone to break-ins. Jacqueline complied, offering her documents. She considered revealing her captain's status right then, but decided to observe how he'd handle a normal citizen's rights. With her new position not yet official, she'd remain low-key, never suspecting how far Doyle's hostility would go. Officer Doyle retreated to his cruiser, scanning Jacqueline Reese's license and registration. No record of wrongdoing. Just a standard driver's license from Pennsylvania, valid, and a newly updated address. He frowned, seeing no immediate cause to proceed. Yet his biases demanded more. He radioed dispatch for any outstanding warrants. Unsurprisingly, none. Irritated, Doyle returned, forcing a stern expression. "Ma'am, step out of the vehicle. We need to talk." Jacqueline, uncertain, asked calmly, "Is there a problem, officer? You have my documents, no violations. I'd prefer to remain inside until you clarify." He scowled at her measured tone, reading it as defiance. "You refusing an officer's command?" She recognized the power dynamic. "I'm not refusing. I'm asking for probable cause." What's the charge? Her polite question seemed to fuel his frustration. He scanned the tinted windows, glancing at the rear seat. I suspect you might have contraband or stolen items. Step out now or I'll forcibly remove you. A hush of tension enveloped them. Residents peered from behind curtains or doorways. Jacqueline gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding. She considered revealing her rank but felt a test was unfolding. Would he truly manufacture a false cause to search? She decided to see how far he'd push, ironically testing how her subordinate might treat a civilian. Fuming at perceived disrespect, Doyle unlatched her car door, ignoring her repeated question. Officer, do you have a warrant or probable cause? With a quick yank, he forced her door open. Get out now, he barked, grabbing her arm. She tried to remain calm, forcibly stepping onto the wet pavement. His grip tightened. Hands on the hood, he ordered. Jacqueline's mind whirled. He's going for a pat-down under zero grounds. Outwardly, she complied, pressing her hands against the cold metal, anger churning inside. She reminded herself to avoid escalating. The next step would be to reveal her identity if he tried to arrest. He patted her pockets, rummaging for contraband. None. He demanded to see inside her purse. She refused, citing Fourth Amendment rights. That refusal made him snap. You're under suspicion for burglary paraphernalia. He forcibly took her purse, rummaging inside, finding only a phone, wallet, some keys. One keyring held a small police-themed emblem, a leftover from her Pittsburgh station. His eyes flicked over it but dismissed it. Everything about you is suspicious, he spat, ignoring the fact that all he found was normal personal items. The small cluster of watchers across the street whispered among themselves, some filming. Doyle took no notice. He was too consumed by prejudice, oblivious to the career-shattering revelation mere moments away. Realizing no evidence existed, Doyle felt cornered. He'd escalated to a public search with no cause, and watchers were filming. I can't release her now. It'd be humiliating, he told himself, desperate to save face. In a reckless twist, he planted an idea. What if I claim she had suspicious items? Fueled by bigotry, he resolved to frame her, figuring the official word of an officer might overshadow a random woman. He rummaged under her seat, eyes flicking around. If he had a small bag of contraband, he could stash it, but he found none. Suddenly, an idea. He scribbled a note in his pad. Possible burglary tools, and brandished a random plastic tool from his cruiser's trunk, planning to claim it was discovered in her car. Returning to the onlooker's side, he proclaimed, I found these burglary pics. The watchers stared, disbelieving. They recognized no cause for that. Meanwhile, in shock, Jacqueline exclaimed, That's a lie. That's not mine. The entire ruse was so transparent that murmurs of he's framing her spread. Yet Doyle sneered, You're under arrest for possession of burglary tools. Jacqueline swallowed fury, her mind racing. He truly is framing me. But as she weighed her next move, someone in the small crowd hollered, She's not just anybody. You'll regret this. Doyle, steadfast in arrogance, placed cuffs on her wrists, ignoring her repeated demand to contact a supervisor. The path was set. He'd take her to the station on fabricated charges, never imagining she was his soon-to-be boss. A short drive later, the station's fluorescent-lit garage loomed. Doyle yanked open the cruiser's back door, escorting a cuffed Jacqueline out. Her presence drew second glances from other officers, curious about the commotion. She bit her lip, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal her identity in front of the watch commander, ensuring maximum accountability. Inside at the booking desk, Doyle loudly declared, I have a suspect for burglary tools, possible break-in attempts. The desk sergeant, Sergeant Monroe, raised an eyebrow, scanning Jacqueline's calm but furious demeanor. What's your name, miss? He asked. Doyle answered for her. She refused to give anything but a partial ID. We need to process her. Jacqueline snapped. Sergeant, I'm Captain Jacqueline Reese, newly assigned to District 14. Let me speak to your watch commander. An electric hush fell over the area. Officers exchanging wide-eyed glances. Monroe hesitated. Captain Reese? The name sounded faintly familiar from departmental bulletins, but they hadn't expected her arrival yet. Doyle scoffed. Don't let her fool you. She's lying. Another officer stepped forward, suspicious but polite. Let me verify. He tapped at the system, inputting Jacqueline Reese. Within seconds, the screen blinked with a record of her new assignment orders from the top brass. The station erupted into chaos as they recognized the woman they had in handcuffs was their soon-to-be commanding officer. Meanwhile, Doyle's expression morphed from cocky to terror. The hush in the precinct intake area was absolute. The desk sergeant stared at the computer's confirmation. Captain Jacqueline Reese, Philadelphia PD's newly appointed District 14 leader, with a distinguished record from Pittsburgh. Stunned, he turned to Doyle, voice tight. You just arrested our new captain on false burglary charges? The watcher's jaws dropped. An older lieutenant near the back recognized her name from an earlier email, snapping a crisp salute. Captain, my apologies. We had no idea you were arriving tonight. Jacqueline, hands still cuffed, nodded curtly. Release me, please. Another officer scrambled to remove the cuffs, face flushing with shame. She inhaled, rubbing her sore wrists, eyes locking on Doyle. Officer, you violated every protocol. My repeated attempts to show ID, your fabricated contraband. The body cam and witnesses will confirm. This is beyond unacceptable. It's criminal. You're done. Her voice carried quiet authority, overshadowing the entire room. Doyle stammered. I didn't know. You didn't say you were an officer. She retorted sharply. I shouldn't have to. You had no grounds to harass or search me, period. Then you planted false evidence. The entire precinct realized the gravity of the moment. A racist officer had framed his new captain. A hush of shock and condemnation permeated. Doyle stood pinned in the spotlight, mind reeling with the realization that his fleeting decision to frame her spelled the end of his career. In the flurry of confusion, the watch commander, Captain Howard Green, rushed downstairs, alerted by urgent calls. He found the intake area thick with tension, saw the newly freed Captain Reese standing in an authoritative stance, Doyle cowering in shock, and half the station in stunned silence. Green approached carefully. Ma'am, are you truly Captain Reese, the new District 14 lead? Jacqueline nodded, producing her official transfer letter from her jacket pocket, ironically unneeded but doubly confirming her status. Green paled. On behalf of the department, I deeply apologize. We will address this immediately. He glared at Doyle. Office. Ex-Officer Doyle, you're relieved of duty pending an internal affairs investigation for framing. Hand over your badge and gun. Doyle's face went white, voice cracking. See, Captain Green, it's a misunderstanding. She refused to identify herself. Green's fury sparked. That's enough. You had no cause to brand her a burglar, no probable cause for a search. And we have potential evidence you planted. Turn in your gear now, or I'll have you escorted out. Shaking, Doyle unclipped his badge and sidearm, handing them over. He tried to stammer a final defense, but Green cut him off, instructing 2 uniformed cops to escort him from the building. Jacobs, one of the officers, carried out the order, eyes lowered in silent condemnation. The hush in the station was deafening as the meltdown of Doyle's career became official. Meanwhile, Jacqueline Reese simply exhaled, having just found a twisted introduction to her new command. Overnight, the news that a newly assigned black female captain was framed by one of her own subordinates spread like wildfire. Footage from bystanders capturing Doyle forcibly arresting her near the curb went viral. Media outlets relished the sensational twist. Philadelphia cop frames black woman. Turns out she's his new boss. Memes, commentary, and heated debates flooded social media. Many voiced outrage. If a police captain wasn't safe from racist policing, how could everyday citizens fare? The mayor's office swiftly condemned Doyle's actions. A formal press release from the Philadelphia PD stated they'd placed him on indefinite leave and initiated an internal probe for misconduct, planting of evidence, and racial bias. Commissioner Ramirez personally called Captain Reese, apologizing on behalf of the entire force. vowing to strengthen anti-discrimination protocols. Amid the swirling coverage, Captain Reese maintained composure, focusing on her official start date with District 14. She recognized the potential to leverage this fiasco to implement real changes from day one. The outpouring of public support from community leaders, local NAACP representatives, and even national civil rights advocates fueled her mission. Meanwhile, she carefully weighed whether to press criminal charges against Doyle. The tide of accountability was unstoppable, overshadowing any attempt to hush the matter. As the days passed, departmental investigators took statements from Captain Reese and numerous witnesses. Body cam footage from other officers near the precinct corroborated her claim of seeing Doyle produce a bag of burglary tools from his own trunk. The matter now hinted at potential felony charges for evidence tampering. Meanwhile, Officer Doyle lurked in limbo, suspended, union reps struggling to defend him. They recognized the public's mood was unsympathetic. Hearing rumors that Captain Reese might push for criminal charges, Doyle mustered a last attempt at self-preservation. He arranged a private meeting with her at headquarters, under the watchful eye of the watch commander. Captain Reese agreed, curious if he'd show genuine remorse. Inside a small conference room, the tension was tangible. Doyle, unarmed, eyes hollow, pleaded that it was all a misunderstanding. "I never intended to frame you. I just overreacted." Reese sat across the table, unwavering. "You pointed a gun at me for no reason, forced an arrest and faked evidence," she enumerated. "That's beyond overreaction, officer." He tried to apologize, voice quivering. "I realize my mistake. I beg for leniency." But in that hush, she calmly stated, "This isn't about me being captain. It's about principle. You endangered countless civilians with your prejudice. There must be accountability." Doyle's eyes dimmed, realizing no excuse could salvage his fate. A formal announcement soon came down. The department intended to dismiss Doyle. The DA's office also pressed charges for filing a false report, official misconduct, and potential civil rights violation. The day he was escorted out from the station in plain clothes, cameras flashed, capturing his final walk of shame. Reporters hurled questions about, "Why did you frame your own captain?" He offered no comment, head lowered. In parallel, community groups and civil rights advocates praised the swift action. Their only question was, would the system produce real consequences beyond termination, ensuring he never polices again? The district attorney's statement suggested so, calling the act a betrayal of public trust that warrants full prosecution. Meanwhile, the city swelled with cautious optimism that the tide might turn against racially motivated policing. Captain Reese quietly focused on her new role in District 14. Her first days felt overshadowed by media frenzy, but the rank-and-file officers largely supported her, acknowledging that she'd displayed remarkable calm under direct threat. They admired her fairness. Some privately admitted relief that a known bigot was purged from their midst. If anything, the fiasco fostered unity behind Reese's leadership. She recognized the unexpected advantage. The scandal had given her moral credibility to champion reforms from the get-go. Encouraged by community leaders, Captain Reese filed a civil lawsuit against Doyle, focusing on punitive measures for forging evidence and wrongful arrest. Proceeds, she publicly declared, would be donated to local anti-bias training programs. This stance earned her further respect. She wasn't after personal enrichment, but systemic change. Some corners bristled, calling it a vendetta, but the majority lauded her moral clarity. The lawsuit advanced quickly, given the mountain of evidence. Doyle's legal counsel tried for an out-of-court settlement, but Reese insisted on a public hearing. Eventually, under intense pressure, Doyle's counsel conceded to a settlement that included an official apology, a moderate sum, which Reese promptly allocated to a new community police trust fund, and a provision that barred him from future law enforcement roles in Pennsylvania. The final statement hammered the point. He'd forfeited any ability to serve as a cop. With the fiasco winding down, Captain Reese resumed daily leadership, forging improved protocols for traffic stops, expanding cultural competency workshops, and bridging local precincts with community nonprofits. Her presence signaled a new era. Even amid old prejudices, a black woman at the helm could turn tragedy into impetus for growth. The karmic blow to Doyle was swift indeed, but the real victory lay in how the entire district might transform under her guidance. Months later, Captain Jacqueline Reese walked the halls of District 14, exchanging nods with uniformed officers who greeted her with respect. The precinct bustled with a new sense of energy, many young recruits finding in her a mentor figure. The memory of Doyle's meltdown had receded, overshadowed by positive changes, like a fresh mentorship program pairing rookie cops with community elders. Outside, city life thrived, the memory of a racist fiasco overshadowed by ongoing dialogues about accountability. In her office, Captain Reese kept a framed photo of her parents, a quiet reminder of the perseverance that shaped her. The phone on her desk beeped. The mayor was on the line, requesting her attendance at a public forum on policing reforms. She smiled, stepping away from a never-ending list of tasks. Crossing the threshold, she recalled that rainy night, the headlights glaring on her sedan, the fear in her chest. She'd come out stronger, ensuring that in her domain, no bigoted officer would ever so brazenly terrorize an innocent citizen again. Outside, the sun shone bright, as if reflecting the city's slow but certain shift toward a more inclusive future. The final vestiges of Doyle's presence lingered only as a cautionary tale that prejudice can, and will, meet swift justice in the end. In the end, Officer Brian Doyle's desperate bid to frame Jacqueline Reese, blinded by prejudice and arrogance, backfired spectacularly the moment he realized she was his soon-to-be police captain. Rather than crushing her spirit, his fraudulent arrest ignited an outcry that reverberated throughout the Philadelphia PD, culminating in Doyle's swift dismissal and potential legal consequences for his fabricated charges. From the initial confrontation on a rainy street to the final settlement in court, Reese's unwavering calm and moral authority showcased how a single act of bigotry can unravel an entire career, compelling deeper introspection across the force. If this gripping, twist-filled tale of prejudice, moral courage, and resounding karma moved you, please like, share it widely, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps champion more stories where unwavering determination and a little ironic fate bring down the mightiest walls of hatred, reminding us all that justice stands tallest when confronted with the stark glare of truth.